my hand down, I feel the rush and momentum, the big moves, the heart stops. It is electrifying and addictive. It amazes me how my horse can do this on her own. That is the thrill and beauty of riding a cutting horse. Hello, I'm Katie Sheely. I'm an intermediate in Douglas County 4-H. Cutting horses are amazing athletes. Their humble beginnings on the ranch have escalated to million-dollar champions in one of the fastest growing equine sports in the world. Today, I would like to share with you the history of the cutting horse, cutting competitions, evolution as a sport, some traits and training needed in a cutting horse, and what's involved with today's cutting horse shows and judging. It all started with 19th century cowboys. They would use their best horses to separate individual cattle from a herd. During the era of open range grazing, cattle from different ranches or outfits would end up all mixed together. Neighboring ranchers would get together and sort out the cattle with their brands. They usually did this a couple times a year, spring and fall. Each outfit would bring a remuda, a herd of horses from which ranch hands select their mounts to do specific jobs required on a roundup. A remuda would include horses anywhere from last year's bronc used to race the edge of a herd that might have scattered a bit in the morning, to a steady, reliable mount to patrol the herd at night. The remuda's elite member was the cutting horse. The cutting horse made the difficult job of separating the cattle into their respective outfits easier and quicker. Many typical cutting horses from a cowboy string quickly caught the eye of the roundup boss because of their instinct not to crowd the cow and wariness of the cow's every move. He was a horse that watched the cow with his eyes and pricked his ears toward a cow when she moved. He not only made the job easier, he made it fun. Texas seems to be the cutting horse's home. In 1898, the first advertised cutting contest took place in Haskell, Texas at the Cowboys Reunion. 15,000 people attended, most of them on horseback, to see who of the 11 riders entered to compete would win the prize of $150. Sam Graves won with Old Hud, a 22-year-old horse that had traveled 2 days to get to the contest. The next recorded cutting event as an arena spectator event occurred when a Southwestern Exposition and Faststock show was added to the South in 1919. The very next year, it became a competitive event. Over the next 25 years, there started up so many different cutting horse contests under so many different rules and conditions, nothing was consistent. So a group of 13 cutting horse owners decided to form an association to establish standard rules and procedures for holding the competitions. They met in 1946 at the Southwestern Exposition and Faststock Show Rodeo in Fort Worth, Texas. Later that year, the National Cutting Horse Association was incorporated. The association had records of 727 events by 1963. At that time, cutters competed for a winning part of the just over $400,000 in prize money. More current figures are much more impressive. In 2006, the NCHA Futurity Contest winnings were $3.7 million, over 100 times the offering of the first year of the association. Today's approved shows now exceed $39 million annually. Lots of money to be won, but as most equine events prove, over time, the real rewards aren't tangible. Like with so many other equine contests, the results of breeding, training, and the bond that forms between people and horses is what can make the sport so special. What is unique about cutting is its link to the sweat and dust of the Old West. As Buster Welch, a legendary cutting champion, said, the people who brought cutting from the open range to the arena and turned the skills of the cowman and cowboy into the contest were real sports. That fine sportsmanship is still alive and well in cutting today. Just as the cowboys and roundup bosses look for certain traits in the horses they chose for the job of cutting out cows, so does the owners and contestants of the cutting show circuit. While many equine sports look for athleticism, good temperament, and trainability in a horse, probably the single most important characteristic in a cutting horse is their cowiness, or cow sense. Horses that are capable of performing well in cutting events are exceptional. The cutting horse must do his job on his own. The rider gives guidance and support for his horse, but in a cutting event, the rider has to turn the horse loose and let him do his job. That's what makes cutting so special. Proper training is essential, but the good cutting horse must be born with certain qualities in order to compete with any success. Conformation, athletic ability, fluid movement, attitude, desire, willingness, and heart. These are the inherent qualities looked for in a cutting horse to start with. So breeding is, as always, a primary concern before training. This is much more essential if competing in the top cutting competitions. The cutting boils down to how well a horse rates and reacts to a cow's movement. The training process enhances these natural abilities by reinforcing correct position on a cow. The trainer must be able to ask the horse to stop, give to the bit, turn the right and left, back, move out, and yield to leg pressure without resistance. A horse needs to be dead broke before you ever start introducing them to cows. So proper groundwork, consistency, and time in the saddle are all essential. Once a horse has developed good balance, agility, and ability to keep his feet under him with stops, turns, and acceleration, he is ready for cows. Most trainers start a horse just sitting in an arena that a more seasoned horses work in cows. They then move on to getting familiar with one cow, approaching a cow, and pushing it around the arena. They then graduate to a herd, working on trailing cattle, pushing calves, and the movements to pull a straight calf back in the herd follow in differing degrees. These are just the basics of developing a horse's cow sense. The level of performance that a horse needs to be at for a cutting contest requires hours with cows, a rider's familiarity with that horse, and the ability of the two to work together. That brings us to the focus of a cutting horse competition. Horse and rider working towards the challenge to select a single calf from the herd, gently guiding it to the center of the arena, and then with lightning fast starts and turns, prevent it from ducking past the horse and escaping back to the herd. At a competition, each horse and rider have 2.5 minutes to complete their work. Horse and rider begin by approaching the herd quietly, deliberately, and without hesitation. They must move into the herd and separate one calf without causing disturbance to the rest of the herd. Judges are looking for the activity of the calf. They want them selected by choice, not at random. So once a rider has selected a calf and the cut is complete, they cannot change without penalty. This is where the real challenge begins. Once the calf is isolated, the rider must loosen his reins and allow the horse to freely demonstrate its cutting skill by controlling the calf to prevent him from returning to the herd. The horse should match the calf move for move in speed, agility, balance, and motion. A loose rein is key to high marks, showing a horse's ability to react instinctively without the need for direction. Time allows for 2 to 3 animals to be cut, but the amount of times with each animal is left to a rider's discretion. Now that the performance part is out of the way, we can talk about how the performance is judged. National events are scored by a panel of 5 judges. Several key points are evaluated. 1, the challenges made by the calf's cut. 2, the horse's instinctive reactions. And 3, the errors in judgment made by horse or rider during the competition. Each judge submits a score ranging between 60 and 80. The high and low scores are dropped, and the middle figure added together to come up with the final points earned. Major penalties include a horse quitting a cow, losing a cow, changing cattle after specific commitment, horse turning tail to the cow, or a horse falling to the ground. Penalties range from 3 to 5 points. Variables that can earn credit on a run include excellence in herd work, skill in driving or setting up cow, deftly handling a difficult situation, or showing courage in confronting a difficult situation. In cutting, like so many equine sports and competitions, success requires teamwork from the horse and rider, but also the freedom and trust for the horse to do what he does instinctively best. I hope today, through informing you of the history of the cutting horse, cutting competitions, evolution as a sport, some traits and training needed in a cutting horse, and what's involved with today's cutting horse shows and judging, you have a greater appreciation of the cutting horse and his rider. The enjoyment that a cowboy, his selected mount, had on the open range when cutting out a cow to return to his ranch is the same electrifying thrill of sitting deep with a loose rein and feeling the cutting horse meet a calf move for move to keep him from the herd. Thank you for your time today. My resources were www.horsetrainingvideos.com, Canadian Horse Journal, ranchandcountry.com, www.nchacutting.com, www.equesearch.com, AmericanHorseDaily.com, and www.montanacowhorses.com. Are there any questions?
Yes. Did you choose this topic because you have cutting horses?
The question was, did I choose this topic because I have cutting horses? Actually, I didn't, but I would really love if I could turn my horse into a cutting horse. And so I've always been interested in that and actually learned a lot from this, so I think I'm going to try it.
Okay. The second question was, is there a preference for a horse's height to be a good cutting horse?
The question was, is there a preference for a horse to be a certain height to be a good cutting horse? The preference is definitely to have a low, kind of stockier horse so they can definitely get down more and really get their shoulders moving and really cut that cow. But I mean, any rider can really work with a good horse to make it, but definitely the shorter is the preference.
Okay, great. Thank you. Go ahead and take down your material and then